Oh,
I promise you, you're not going to see this anywhere else. I promise you,
yeah, probably.
it's completely unique content. And the only bet, my best guess is that maybe someday, that maybe even tomorrow, people will be quoting this content because I finally figured it out. So, Phil Beisel, you're going to be on the other side of the show today. Usually, I'm
Yeah.
the one going, "What are you even talking about, Phil?" And please help me out. And today, I've asked you to come on to be my foil. So, okay, what am I
What,
talking about? What am I
yeah,
talking
what are
about?
we talking about?
We're talking about Robotaxi and what's left that maybe is confusing to the public. What is it that people are going still head scratching and trying to figure out about Robotaxi and how it works and how the numbers work, et cetera. So Grok and I had a very, very long conversation this morning. We went back and forth and back and forth. And then I sent Phil all the information that I gathered from my own thinking and Grok's thinking. And so Phil had a little while at least to contemplate what we were going to talk about this morning. But he claims that he doesn't know what I'm talking about. I mean,
I'm an idiot.
he understands what I've said, but it's not, this is not deep. That's what he was saying. Here's what we want to start with this, Phil. If the cost of putting a robotaxi out for service, whether it's your car or a small fleet, or whether it's Tesla's fleet or even a big fleet, somebody else's own, if the cost is low enough, every other question becomes moot. That's my basic premise here.
Yeah.
So if I can make a candy bar for 2 cents, it doesn't really matter very much how much I have to charge other people. Now, if it costs me 50 cents to make that same candy bar, well, then it costs a lot. I mean, it means my cost to sell that candy bar is very, very important. What can I get in revenue is going to be critical. But the cost of the robotaxi, well, okay, what do we know so far? Kathy Wood has been putting this out for years. She's got a number, what, 25 cents. So you've
Right.
seen that number, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Have you ever looked at her stuff in detail and seen
Not detail.
that
Yeah.
detail? Okay, all right. And so did you just accept Kathy's number or did you figure she was probably conservative?
Um, a little bird told me, um, from directly from the horse's mouth that they were looking at Tesla was looking at 50 cents a mile Model Y and 30 cents, pushing to 30 cents a mile in Cybercab at scale, and then possibly lower over time. So that jives, right? That fits.
And then Elon has said under 20 cents. He said that
Yeah.
repeatedly, repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I think the near term goal in the minds of Tesla as their business modeling, looking at this, is that they look at, I think they're looking at Y as the kind of obvious entrant here because it's much more fungible and in production,
Right.
and of course it's a higher cost object because it's not purpose built for this
Right.
exercise, which really frankly is the whole point of this discussion, right? It's all of this whole discussion is about cybercab, right? Because that's where you start to really blow that unit economics number into the place where it's definitionally a different thing,
Mhm.
right? Whereas, the Y, they're efficient manufacturer and it's their own asset and they can push that cost down as they have, and they, you know, but what are they going to approach, at the raw cost of that car to them, at their cost, maybe 50 cents a mile. But look, why is cybercab in existence? Is to push this thing so low that it's your candy bar thing, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
like, yeah, I think so. I think so, right?
All right. All right. So let's look at it here. So the two biggest costs are depreciation and insurance, or at least that's what people say. But both of those can eventually become super small. So right now, you can go out and buy a Model Y, maybe not in California because of the high cost of the tax on it, but around the country on an average, you could buy a Model Y for 50 grand.
Right.
I'm figuring 300,000 miles of use and assuming that you discard the car for free at the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or it could be, 250,000 miles of use and you can get 5 grand for it at the end. I don't
I
know.
I, I buy definitely 250,000 miles.
Okay. All right.
That come on, it's easy.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah. And so you're looking at this at that level. So this is you and me going out and doing this as a consumer, 17 cents a mile. All right. That's easy. I can do the math. You can do the math in your head, probably.
I wouldn't count on that, but
Oh,
sure.
okay, okay. And so if it goes under 50,000 or if it does more than 300,000 miles, obviously then it's lower than 17 cents. Tesla's cost is obviously lower. They make the car, so they have a lower cost. So 17 cents will be the max. All right.
Right.
All right. Then Cybercab, he's saying that's going to be under 30,000 and it's going to be purpose built to go 500,000 miles. Okay.
Definitely longer utilization.
All right.
Definitely.
That drops the cost to 6 cents a mile on depreciation.
Yeah.
Now Tesla's not going to pay 6 cents. They're not going to pay 30,000 for that car.
Nope.
Some people have a high number on it at 20,000. I'm thinking it's going to drop maybe to 14 or 12, especially with the 4680 batteries being so cheap now. But let's go with 20,000. That's 4 cents a mile.
Yeah. It's an
So,
unavoidable piece of math, right?
right. It's not hard to figure out at 500,000 miles. So, um,
So at half the duty cycle, like if you did 250,000 miles, that's 8 cents, right?
right,
So worst case, it's somewhere in the middle.
right,
If you
exactly.
think about the wear and tear of that vehicle, can it go 500,000? Yes. Pristine wise, I think it could clearly go 500,000 miles. I don't know what it would look like at the end of that after, a bunch of people piling in it, but I would say, but certainly between 250 and 500 for Cybercab for sure, for sure.
Yeah, I've thought about people piling into it because one of the things that I always notice on a car that's got a couple 100,000 miles on it is it smells a little bit or, it's worn here and there. But, pulling out the chairs, pulling out the seats and putting in new seats or just putting in new fabric, pulling out a dashboard. I mean, these are not hard things to do if you're doing it en masse. For me, if I've got a car that's got 200,000, I'd rather just switch out the car. But for Tesla, who's trying to maximize the usage of these things, or even for you and me, when we got them out for rent or for fares, it might not be that big of a deal to go ahead and change out some of the things that start to look worn and smell bad.
The thing is, though, the backdrop always has to be assumed here that, or at least stated emphatically, that this is a purpose-built car for this reason. And there are very few purpose-built vehicles for reasons, picking up Ubers are for consumers, and you see what happens in the Uber market where a bunch of these Uber owners, sometimes they cover the seats, they do all sorts of interesting things. I would think that Tesla, in all its meticulousness, has thought about those seats in a different, duty cycle
Right.
than your average seat sitting in a car, more like how a bus seat. I mean, how far does a public transit bus go in its lifetime? And, those are essentially plastic seats that don't pick up smell and wear in the typical way. And so, I mean, Tesla certainly has at its disposal the means to build the interior of this car that is a much more durable than your average consumer car,
Yeah.
which is what which is everything else is in this fleeting model today, where you've got whether it's Waymo buying other cars or Uber, Lyft. They're none of these cars are purpose built.
Right. And so you might look at a semi truck as another example
Yeah,
where they're
yeah,
designed to go 500,000 to a million miles and
right.
they do 50, 60, 70,000 miles a year. And again, they're designed and built around that idea. So I don't think it's hard to imagine the $500,000 Cybercab and a $300,000 Model Y. So that gets us to insurance. All right. The highest estimate I've seen is 10 cents a mile. But I didn't believe that. So I went to Grok. Actually, I already knew this because I talked to Grok about it a few weeks ago.
Okay.
But I said, okay, Grok, what's the average liability insurance cost in the United States for a good driver? The average, just a good driver, not the perfect driver, a good driver. And Grok said that was about 3 to 5 cents.
35 cents.
Okay, for
Okay.
the liability portion, not for the comprehensive, not for the collision, just for the liability. Because the collision can be the most expensive part. But of course, if you're talking about a $25,000, a 20,000, or a $14,000 car, the parts, you just send them over to the service center, you pull off the door and you put on another one. It's not going to be a big deal. But Lemonade has said it would go half on FSD. I don't know if for people out there in the audience that haven't heard this, Lemonade says we'll charge half if you've got FSD on your car and you're using it.
Well, one point about this too, not that I'm an insurance expert, but what is certain about insuring FSD versus it's a very different statistical problem, right? FSD is a constant. It's known. It's replicated across every car. It's the same. It obviously operates in different environments, and so now you have the environment, but you don't have this whole insurance play where you're looking at who is the average driver, and you've got the low and the high risk. This is a constant thing, so I think it creates a lot more predictability in the insurance business side of it,
Yeah,
right?
right. I do. I agree with you. So I'm going to go with 5 cents being the worst case,
Okay, so you're adding 4 to 5 cents for Cybercab now?
something like that for the
So you're
cyber.
around 10 cents?
Yeah, we're around 10 cents then, right? So
Okay.
liability cost, according to, I'm sorry. Yes, all in 5 cents or less. All right. So then, oh, and then by the way, this cost for you and me for our car, if we put it out like an Airbnb situation,
Right.
that cost could be in the 30% and probably will be in the 30% that Tesla's charging us off the revenue. And maybe they have to go to 33 or 35%, but it's going to be in that range. It's going to be the 30% probably can even be can include the insurance, but because it's their machine that's going to create the liability, then they will be on the hook. Let's face it, they will be sued
Yeah, yeah,
if there's a
yeah.
liability problem.
Okay, so you're suggesting that the model here is that Tesla charges the premium for the piece of the insurance that I mean, it could do it at cost to the Airbnb customer, or it could get some revenue out of that. But you're saying that you would add about 30%.
Well, right. No, I'm saying that 30% is what most people think Tesla will charge you or
Right,
me
right,
per revenue. I mean, per dollar of revenue.
right.
If we make a buck a mile, the revenue
Oh, total cost.
total cost
Total
30%.
cost. So 30% out of that dollar that
Right.
would come back to you is all in cost for Tesla to insure and operate the vehicle within the fleet. Okay, tell
Right.
me about enter.
That counts FSD, that counts insurance probably, that counts acquisition cost of customers, which we'll talk about in a minute. I mean, Tesla's going to be doing a lot of work for that 30 cents, but it will also be very profitable for Tesla at 30%. And people have given like Apple a hard time for charging 30% to the app owners because Apple's cost is so low. And
Mhm.
some people have suggested maybe Tesla will come in at 20% instead of 30%. I don't know, but that is kind of the range I think would be somewhere between 20
What
and 30%.
what do you think the raw energy cost per mile is?
Well, that would be the next subject. So
Oh, okay. Well, look how good I am.
there you go. So Grok says the worst case. Now, this is the worst case. This would be people who decide they don't ever want to see the car, just leave it out there all the time. It'd be you or me. They'd be going to superchargers. They don't come home at night and get charged at home. They go to a supercharger. The average cost would be 14 cents a mile. So that's top, 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 top. Now,
And by the way, is what you're saying that the consumer owning the vehicle is responsible for charging the vehicle?
oh, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a different way. There is a different way, right?
It could be it could be part of the 30%, or it could be
Yeah, I
35%.
mean, I think an open question here beyond the cost structure is sort of a bit the operating model.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is the operating model of, like, I think you have two different things here. If you take maybe not. If you buy a cybercab and you add it to the fleet
Mhm.
for some period of time,
Mhm.
what are Tesla's responsibilities?
Right. Right.
Right? Is it cleaned by their robot infrastructure that they've talked about? Is it charged within that?
Right.
You know, because it now operates exactly like a Tesla-owned cybercab.
Right.
So it would seem to me that the right choice would be Tesla would say, once you put it in the fleet for 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours a day,
Mhm.
we take care of it.
I like that idea. In fact, I have rented my cars out on Turo.
Hmm.
And when you rent your car out on Turo, generally speaking, I'm the one driving it to the airport to pick up the client. I'm the one that's cleaning it when the client gets done. I'm the one taking the pictures of the car before and after because of any scratches. I'm doing the inspections. I'm gassing it up before it goes out, and I'm gassing it
Hmm.
up again when it comes back. I'm doing all of that. But at the airport at Los Angeles International Airport, you can drive your car over there, put it on the lot, and Turo does everything for you. They just charge more.
Hmm.
Yeah. So there could end up maybe being two offers. There'd be two ways. If you're only putting the car out for a few hours a day, maybe it's all on you. But if you're putting it out, most of the time, maybe Tesla picks up all that stuff.
Yeah, I think there's another consideration though. It's sort of like if the car, how far does it travel from the home port, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're let's say you're in San Jose and you put the car in service and an hour later it's in Mill Valley,
Mhm.
which is 70 miles away from here or 80 miles away from here. Um, where does it get charged? As the owner of that vehicle, couldn't possibly charge it.
Right.
So it would make a lot of sense that Tesla makes some accounting for its initial charge state, and then the maybe charges brings it into their service
Right.
fleet model,
Exactly.
proper, right? Because they would be equipped to do so, right? At scale, in fact, they would be equipped to do so. Um, it brings up a whole other discussion I want to have at the end of this,
Yeah.
but
Right. Okay.
please continue.
All right. So, but to your point, if Tesla is doing the charging
Hmm.
and they're getting wholesale rates and using their batteries, et cetera, to maximize that, we're talking as low as 2 cents a mile. And if you do bring the car back to your house at night and charge it at night, getting local rates at night, you're looking at 5 cents a mile. So there's lots of possibilities here for keeping this cost extremely low. But worst case, I wanted to have the worst case. Now, the worst case probably is if you are doing all this in Santa Monica, California, where the electricity rate, or maybe even your town,
Yeah,
in California,
trust me.
where the electricity rate might be double, okay? But then
Right.
you can probably charge double in those neighborhoods as well. All right, but roughly speaking, on a national basis, 14 maximum, 2 cents for Tesla to charge it, 5 cents to do home charging. All right, is that all
Yeah. Yeah. It would certainly absolutely vary
right?
geographically, but all those costs get pushed onto the consumer because I mean everybody knows, in California the energy prices, electric prices are out of control,
Right, right,
literally out of control. And um, it's not unheard of. I mean, you see Tesla superchargers here doing 50 something cents a kilowatt
yeah,
hour of energy. That's expensive, man. I
yeah.
mean,
But so is gasoline. So you got,
no, yeah, I mean, no. I mean, it
$5
actually
gasoline. Yeah,
it,
yeah,
it still works out that the electric per mile cost is cheaper. Um, but it used to be so much cheaper.
right.
And then, they got their little mitts into the electric business too, and now it's out of control. So, yeah. Okay.
All right. So then we get to maintenance. And this is one of the ones where Grok thought I was too conservative. They thought it wouldn't be this high. So I said maintenance, including tires, would be about $2,000 for every 50,000 miles. Now, tires, the last set of tires I got were just under $1,000, but they're not going to cost $1,000 for the Cybercab.
No.
And my guess is that Tesla will at least make, even if I want to buy the tires myself, Tesla will probably have a deal based on their wholesale cost. They'll probably have a deal. But then that would still leave another $1,000. If it was 1,000, that would leave another $1,000 per 50,000 miles for every other kind of maintenance. And Teslas don't take any maintenance.
That's
I've
pretty
had,
much true.
I think
Yeah.
I think I've had one of the worst cases. We had a $3,000 charge for an air conditioning compressor that went out. How
Mm.
often does that? That's like I don't think
Yes.
anybody else has had that problem. And we had a battery. So that was $100. So that's it. That's what I've had in almost
Well,
six.
and yeah, and something to bring up about that whole maintenance issue is because this car is like a single type of model built for this purpose, purpose-built services that, on a vehicle, there's common wear patterns that show themselves. Nobody can necessarily predict at manufacturing what those wear points will be, but because Tesla owns this completely, you can bet your bottom dollar that Tesla would uh, quickly see and be able to improve the reliability of key failure elements of the car.
Yeah.
So in other words, not only will they be able to manufacture them at scale cheaply, but they'll be able to um, manufacture them in a way that over time the maintenance cost is lower because they address the failure points more in real time
Yeah.
because
So,
they have a large volume of exactly the same thing, right?
all right. So are you going to buy my 4 cents a mile or do you think I have to lower it?
I don't know. Let's keep it at four. What does this all add up to?
Wait a minute. Well, we'll add it all up at the end.
Okay.
Cleaning and inspection. I'm going to say $10 max. If I take a small car to the car wash and get the cheapest car wash they offer, it's under $20. So I'm thinking that Tesla will set up these cleaning stations, these cleaning facilities, probably at the superchargers. So I'm saying it's going to be $10 max. Now maybe I want to bring mine home at night and quickly do it myself, so I have only the cost of my labor. But I think $10 per day that in use, of course, is the maximum.
Okay. So then that has to be computed across the number of miles, right?
Miles per day average, right?
What is that
So,
number in your model
okay, so the normal daily miles counting deadheading is 400 miles
with deadheading?
with deadheading. So that would mean that the cleaning cost would be 2.5 cents per mile.
Yeah, and so people understand deadheading is when the car's traveling without a paying customer.
Right. Whether that's driving around looking for a customer or waiting for a customer, or whether
Yeah,
that's coming back or going to the next customer, if you will,
yeah.
after drop somebody off. Okay, so now we do some totals. So for you're in my car, if it's a Model Y, we got 17 cents, the initial depreciation. And that's probably high because you're going to have some value in the car when you sell it. Plus 5 cents for insurance, 10 cents for charging, 4 cents for maintenance, and 2.5 cents for cleaning. So we're at 38 and a half cents. So my earlier numbers, I've been up around 50 cents, 60 cents. But when I do these numbers now with Grok helping, I can't get to 50 cents.
Yeah.
Now, maybe you saw something I missed, but
No, I don't know. I mean,
Grok didn't see anything that I missed. So 50 cents would be or 38.5. And if you want to round up to 50, fine. But 38.5 seems to be the number. And there's also the possibility that you bought the car used. And so you didn't pay 50,000, or 40,000, you bought it used for 25 or something. Now, it also could go the other way because it becomes a business purchase and people know it's a business purchase, the cost of the car or the used car might go up and Tesla might charge more
yeah,
as well. So we have to see what
yeah.
happens on that. All right. So I'm at 38 and a half cents there. If we go to the best case for fleet, then you would be talking with a cybercab. You'd be talking about,
Cybercab.
yeah, be talking about a 6 cents for the car, 5 cents again for the insurance at the most. 10 cents for the charging, 4 cents for the maintenance, and 2.5 cents for the cleaning. So we're now down to 27.5 cents for you and me to put a cyber cab on the road. And I
Yeah.
think I'm having, again, a hard time seeing it as being more than that. Again, unless Tesla decides to charge more for the cyber cabs. All right. Oh, by the way, the other thing that the 30% would include, I forgot, Tesla also is going to have the concierge and rapid response elements. So concierge would be you're in the car, you get sick, you die, whatever the problem might be, or you have a flat tire, the battery just falls out of the car. Anyway, you have some kind of a problem and you need to get on the little screen and you say, "Hey, I got a problem." Somebody answers, a human answers, or you get stuck in some kind of situation.
Yeah, they're operational,
Right,
effectively their fleet operational cost,
right.
if you will.
Right. And rapid response, meaning the tow truck comes out to get you out of the jam. All right. So that would be included in the 30 cents also. Okay. So if we get down to the last one here, we got Tesla is going to pay 4 cents a mile for the Cybercab. Maybe it's still 5 cents for insurance. That would be high. But their cost for the charging goes down to 2 cents a mile. Their cost for maintenance would be half of what it would be for you and me, because obviously they buy everything at wholesale and do it themselves. So that's 2 cents a mile. And then finally, cleaning, I'm thinking that they would get a little bit cheaper, but I won't argue over 2 or 2.5. When you add all that up, it's 15 cents a mile plus the concierge and the rapid response. So that is how you get under 20 cents a mile.
Yep.
Is there
Okay.
anything that, I know that this was thrown at you just a little while ago, but
I don't, my brain is swimming around the energy cost, not really. I mean, I just am not here to do the math live, but I don't know because I think the issue there is it's so market dependent, that one.
yeah,
Um, but it doesn't really matter in this sense. I mean, like if you're trying to compute uh, a fixed cost per mile, that's fine, but the energy cost is just going to be passed on to the consumer.
right,
So it almost doesn't matter, right? I mean, in a sense, it doesn't really matter because like you would expect to pay. I mean, it has to be, right? Because you're not gonna you're gonna be charged something in a local market,
right,
and it has to
right,
bear the cost of the local market. It
right,
just has to, and it, by the way, it would stand up competitively then, right? Because
mhm, right,
there's no free lunch in that
right,
market,
right.
unless you charge them across the border.
So even if you took the highest one, which was 10 cents, and you doubled that, so you went to 20 cents, that
Yeah,
would still mean that your owned Model Y would be under 50 cents a mile.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now then, we're going to get into some stuff that you are more excited about, I think. Not that you haven't been excited about the rest, but it's something that you've
You
already
have no idea my excitement.
is the posting you posted about this, and that is the
Yeah,
utilization. Okay. So for the Tesla fleet, there is a very, very tiny cost associated with the Tesla fleet standing around. If they put out
right.
50,000 cars in,
It's just depreciation, right?
right, if you put 50,000 cars in Riverside that only has
Yeah,
300,000 people, and most of them would just sit there, you
yeah,
just have your depreciation.
yeah.
Uh, and maybe you have a cost to garage it, maybe you have a cost to wash it once a week, but I mean, basically, it's almost zero. So you can flood the zone.
Yes, and by the way, that is the magic here because if you flood the zone, it does two things. It wipes your competition off the map, and it changes transportation as a service. I mean, it changes the landscape of transportation completely. That's the kind of stuff I ultimately want to get into and talk about a little bit. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I mean,
Okay.
I think that's the whole point here. And I think that's because Tesla, I mean, what we're talking about here is Tesla has the economic lever to flood the zone and do something that's very, very different than what we have today, where we have uh, limited and surge pricing that, consumers are irate about, really,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am. I can tell you.
It's absolutely awful. And the system one of the things that Tesla doesn't have to deal with, if I can speak, put a little footnote here, is it doesn't have to deal with anybody gaming the system. And what I mean by that is Uber drivers, Lyft drivers are constantly gaming the system, and they are intentionally creating um, higher surge pricing by staying out of the zone and then flooding the zone in a known place. So, this is a constant thing. Like you have a large concert exit the SAP Center downtown, and you have 20,000 people looking for uh, Ubers. The worst thing for the Uber drivers to do is to be in the zone. The best thing for them to be is 10 miles out of the zone, sitting there knowing full well that they want to participate
Right.
and have the surge pricing move up because the models don't understand that that's what they're doing, although they are getting smarter about that. And then so all of a sudden you're paying, a huge premium as the consumer, and they become plentiful anyway.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that ironic?
Isn't that
And
right?
so, yeah, no, and I think what it comes down to is that Tesla, because they're operating this autonomously, is that you don't have that same human in the loop for all the reasons that we're talking about, specifically this one I'm mentioning.
Yeah. So actually, for your and my fleet, or for a major fleet, all of us are going to be kind of in the same boat on this. It's mostly going to be depreciation that is going to be impacting us on a daily basis. But there is the other side of it, which Tesla will still have, but it'll be way more important to you or to a fleet, and that is maximizing revenue per vehicle just because we want to. That's, I mean, it's kind of the point that you just made with regard to the Uber driver. The Uber driver has
Right.
got his own labor cost that
Right.
he's talking about. But for these that have no labor cost, it'll mostly be, hey, how can I pay? How can I make my payments if my car is underutilized? Even though the depreciation will be the same, but how do I make the payment? So fleet managers and individuals who own these cars will have a higher degree of interest in making sure that they're getting highly utilized. So now that becomes this give and take, where you A, want to get maximum revenues with surge pricing. B, you also want to make sure the customer is getting good service. So take it away, Phil. What have you been learning with regard to all this?
Well, I mean, I think we should turn it a little bit on its head, because we have to look at what we have to look at this cost from a relative basis of what your general operating behavior is, right? I mean, we both have cars sitting in our garage depreciating right now,
Right.
and the utilization is extremely low.
Right.
I think it's like 1 hour a day out of 24 that you get utilization of your vehicle. So all we're talking about is some in your mind, from an individual that might have two cars and replace one with a cyber cab for personal use, a mixed use model, where they're like, okay, I need it to go to the doctor appointment. Let's say it's a retiree. I need it for doctor's appointment. I need it to go to my, whatever book club, my coffee meetings, whatever I do. And then, but that's only a small fraction of the day. So the rest of the day, the car can be in service. And if the fleet model is granular enough, or dynamic, let's use the word dynamic enough, then you can recall that car rather quickly.
Or you can schedule it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, exactly. I'm saying in the case that you're like, oh, I need it at 1. Yes, you
Right.
can
Right.
you can you can put a bounding box here. It's like, let it leave the house at 8. It needs to be back by noon or whatever, 1 o'clock. So then I can use it from 1 to 3, and then it can go. Um, yeah. So now the economics are now turned a little bit upside down, because it's like you don't have that previous known fixed cost that just sits there, um, like this ice cube in your garage melting away, right? And I think that's part of what's going on here. I mean, I think that people will start to switch to it's really interesting. I call it micro fleeting, and I know that this isn't a revolutionary term, but I think if we look at the big picture here, um, consumers have never had the opportunity to rent out that type of thing for by the hour, by the minute, um, and suddenly that's open to them with this model. And Tesla, I was thinking of it from the service side, the software, all the stuff that has to happen. Tesla has an enormous amount of stuff that has to go into making this extremely fluid to be, like dealing with the idea of that the fleets can be, it can be a fleet of one, it could be a fleet of 100, it could be a fleet of 1,000, or it could be the Tesla owned fleet. And all it has to be dynamic through that entire thing. And there are different considerations, like if you bought 10 of them because you're building a mini business because the economics work for you or they make sense and that um, your utilization, you want your utilization to be as high as possible and you never feel the need to maybe reserve one of them, but you're really not using that car for your personal transportation, right? Because you're really using it as a business. But then on the other extreme, maybe you're just car sharing it, you're willing to buy that asset, and that's the fleet of one. And that's an unheard of thing. This is new. This is new.
Actually, even the idea of small, the average individual, starting a small business and putting one, two, three, four cars out is a completely new idea. And a big deal is going to, I think, be Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who right now,
Absolutely.
are in the seat. They don't have to be in the seat. They can be at their seat at home watching
I've
the game.
I've actually had conversations with Uber drivers about this very thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the in some cases what they're doing is there's some deal, I believe. I don't know the specifics, but they actually can rent at least Teslas through Uber, um, through some kind of Uber deal, kind of
Right.
group deal, and then they know that first number of days they're paying off that month's leasing, and then the rest is gravy. But their butt is in the seat of the car, and they're
Yeah.
driving the car, and so for that essentially known fixed cost to them, right? They can shift that to a Model Y or a Cyber cab, and suddenly they don't have to actually have to drive anymore. And if and they're freed up to side hustle another business or do whatever they want. And they're also able to replicate themselves now, right? Instead of being, the problem with driving is you can only drive one vehicle at a time, but you can own 10 of these. So I think that would be for some of them that are entrepreneurial and somewhat aggressive, and they're not just an average person joining the Uber, but I mean, there's some guys that are very smart, very very smart about this. I mean, I talked to a gentleman who picked me up actually at a Tesla dealership, and it was I had the car in the Gilroy Service Center. I had it at the Gilroy Service Center. Shouldn't call it a dealership. I hate that word. But sales center and service center, and they picked me up. Tesla cost, but and I said, where did you come from? And he said, well, I came from Monterey, and I'm actually on my way home to Fremont, and I have a business in Monterey, and every single day I add 2 hours on the front and end of my business to basically be an Uber driver with my Tesla, and I pick up rides along the way. Doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does, but ultimately it works out pretty well for me. So this guy aggressively understands how to time manage his day, get to his place of business, open his business, run his business, whatever it is, and then front end and back end that with his Uber, ride share. So would he be a candidate that would know how to convert into be a small fleet owner? Of
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
course.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I could also imagine, I mean, I know I've mentioned this on my show many, many times before. You might be in the same boat, but we had two cars until about a year and a half ago. And I work from the house. My wife is a university professor. She drives 6 miles one way and the same time every day. We said, what the heck? We don't need a car. We don't need the
Well,
second car. So I got rid of one car. She drives the other
yeah.
one. I plan my schedule for doctor's appointments or whatever it is. I plan all that around the days, the times when she's not using it. It has worked out amazingly. We haven't even, I think I've used Uber twice, and the last time it was like $4 a mile. So I decided I'll never do that again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other side of that, or the kind of obvious thing here, is that the way your wife would do this, if you had that extra vehicle, if you had a cyber cab, she would take the cyber cab to work, check it into the service, have it run all day, and then, time boxed to when she wants to leave, and then come home, and then maybe throw it out in service for the evening,
Right,
right?
right.
So now, and I think that's the whole point here, is that what we see is we suddenly have this asset that isn't just fleet, and it's not personal ownership. It's this beautiful hybrid, and that creates a lot of value because you need that object, you need transportation, but you also want, you know, to make some money on that asset. And that's an extraordinary thing. That's a different thing. It's like leasing your house. Like, it's different than Airbnb, because Airbnb is like you've got a property, and most of those properties are set up for exclusively Airbnb. And most of them are not, to my knowledge. I mean, I don't study that, but my knowledge of it is that most people, maybe they're going to use that asset for a month, a year themselves. It's their vacation home or something, and the rest of the time they'll. But I mean, we're talking now where you're reaching granularity where you're like, okay, I can rent my house for an hour.
Right.
It's
Yes.
the same. It's that model, right? I can rent my house for an hour, and uh, and I think if you start to unravel this further, when you get this thing starting to move in volume and flooding the zone, or however we want to describe it, suddenly everybody is making the new economic choice to use these objects because the cost is so low.
Mhm.
So now, um, there's a tremendous amount of people that can participate in that, and never really, that we've predicted a long time ago that uh, vehicle ownership would start to decline, personal vehicle ownership would decline, um, and certainly when you have these kind of very clean, like it's about, it isn't just about the cost per mile. It is also about the consistency, availability.
Mhm.
And what I mean by consistency is, I mean, I think what Tesla will do, and people may disagree with me here, is I think they will be extremely cautious with outside surge pricing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because, and when I say this is because they will have the volume advantage. They'll have that flood the zone model, and therefore they won't be um, kind of required to
Right.
try to maximize uh, the utilization by increasing the cost, which pisses off the consumer so much,
Right.
right? So that it just, this is a virtuous cycle kind of product. It's a virtuous cycle kind of service. Like everything feeds back into itself. Because, and by the way, it all starts at manufacturing, right? We're all talking about, like, what we mean here. This analysis all talks about the cost of the car. I mean, if you look at, we don't know what Waymo really spends, but we think they spend what there's some contract that they're reaching out with, like minimum $50,000 a cost per car before they add the sensor suite,
Right.
which I would hazard a guess can't be less than 5,000, probably
Oh,
closer to. No,
probably.
no, I mean, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I
What-
think, yeah. So for the modeling I've done has said that they will eventually get this down to 60,000 total all in.
Yeah, yeah. So that's sort of what I'm saying. It's like 50,000 for the car, 5 to 10,000 for eventually,
Yes.
the best case scenario,
Right.
right? Um, well, that's 60 versus Tesla's cost at, call it.
15 or 20.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Call it 20 I mean, because this is what, um one of the things that is true here is that, I mean, it's sort of manufacturing math, right? It's, if you're set up to build these things in volume, then your per unit cost goes down. And this is and that they have done everything about this car. The first time you see one, I had the pleasure to see a pre-production unit at Santana Row, Tesla store, and in discussions with everybody and looking at that car, it is extremely clear that every little teeny aspect of the car is built for scale, efficiency, um, everything we've talked about here. And that changes the game. Like I don't really, in my mind, I don't really know. It's sort of like the static view of this, the sort of linear view of this, right? Goes like this. Tesla enters the market and they share some of this rideshare market with everybody else that's participating, and it's a mixed thing. And I think Morgan Stanley kind of said something to this effect. The other side of this is that's all bullshit, right? Because Tesla comes at it in such a way that it changes the very way we move around, and cities are flooded with these little gold cars, and Uber doesn't exist anymore and won't exist anymore, and Waymo has a really tough time and probably doesn't exist at some future point, right? I mean, isn't that what's going to happen
Well,
here?
it would seem like these are all very real possibilities. I thought we'd really quickly get into the question of what does this really mean for Tesla and for you and me if we do this kind of thing, and make it so simple that people will be able to remember it. So we got the 50 cents a mile cost. We've got the 30% coming back that we have to pay Tesla. And everybody thinks that at least initially the amount per car per mile will be no less than $1. Well, that would leave 20 cents to you and me, 20 cents a mile.
Yep.
So if the car is doing 250 miles a day of rent of time on the road, that ends up being $500 a month. Well, that's going to pretty much cover your cost. So you're getting $500 a month free and clear. And that's over and above your depreciation. So we got to think of this in two different ways accounting wise. That is really $500 in your pocket profit because the depreciation was already in that 50 cents.
Do the math again. You said you
50
would take
cents
home
cost,
you would take home 20 cents a mile at the end of the day,
right? 20
right?
cents a mile
And you would do 250 miles
a
a
day,
day.
revenue miles.
Okay.
Oh, that would be 75,000 a month. That's high. Let's just go with 30,000 miles a month of revenue. Okay.
250 a day times 30, right? What
Two
is,
250 a day times 30 would be 7,500.
I don't know, you're gonna have to
Yeah,
pull.
yeah, 7,500. I'm saying maybe instead of that, we should be thinking in terms of, I said 30,000. I think we maybe should be talking in terms of, well, yeah, 6,000 miles a month would be fine. Yeah. So maybe 6,000 miles a month. That's what I actually had here. I had it at 6,000. I kind of confused myself. So 6,000 miles a month, 200 miles a day. All right, 30 days. All right, so 6,000 miles a month would be $1,200 a month. And now let's go back to the accounting. That's pure profit
Yeah,
because
that's
your depreciation is already in
yeah.
there.
So $1,200 and yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, you get it? All right, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
lowest possible revenue that we can currently imagine. Now, eventually it might get down to 50 cents a mile, and maybe there's some other math that's going
Uh,
to happen at that point. But for
yeah.
now, it's a minimum.
The only way I'd poke a hole in that, I'd say, is I don't know what the average number of miles per day
But
would.
let's keep it, let's go down to 100.
Yeah,
100 miles a day, that's still 3,000 miles a month. Then you get your 20 cents. Now you're at $600 a month.
yeah,
Still pure profit. Now then, let's say it goes to $2. Okay,
yeah.
of revenue per mile. Now you double, not double, you more than double your money in your pocket. So
Well,
it's a very good deal for the consumer.
and I think the other dynamic here that's sort of not being said is now we don't, this there's a lot to do. There's a lot to be said on the other side of this about regulatory,
Oh, yeah.
um, you know, the idea that autonomy would be accepted. And
Right.
but let's stipulate for sake of argument that there's a national
Right.
regulatory type of framework here that allows for this type of autonomy. And what you have for the first, I wouldn't say the first time, it's not the right way to think about it, but you have a great distribution of these assets across the geography. So now, not only do you have, like if you think about it, Waymo, if we forget about Uber for the moment,
Mhm.
and we put Waymo in the plan, Waymo is pretty much a city service. I mean, if you're getting,
Right. Mhm.
or a city to suburban service,
Right.
and
Right.
obviously the economics work out that you place it in downtown San Francisco, you don't place it in down in Los Gatos or something, right? But whether the service covers the zone or not, but if you start to go out more geographically rural areas,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, you just don't have that service. But with this sort of economics, now for the first time, I
Right.
think
Right.
you can find yourself in a very remote area and have a cyber cab available to you because someone wants to buy them and put them in fleet,
Yeah.
you
100%.
know? And
Yeah.
and that is where this gets super, super interesting from a scale kind of perspective, is because, I think what Tesla wants to do here is desi desire for high availability and consistent pricing.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's in Elon's bones, where he is really thinking about, uh, I don't want to play the surge pricing business
Right.
because it's so distasteful to the consumer. So I mean, it's lumpy in the rural areas, clearly difficult, like availability is hard. But if people see that asset, if somebody puts a few in that area and the asset has good utilization, more people will buy them. There'll be more availability. Of course, that might push ultimately anybody's given daily revenue down. It's
Mhm.
hard,
Mhm.
it is hard to say. But the point is, if people can start counting on them, all of a sudden people
Right.
start to use these services
Yeah.
more regularly in those remote areas.
100%.
So I think for the first time you have a different kind of scaling going on here than what we see today.
So yeah, and if we go back again to the Model Y, if I live in that rural area, I would want to put my car out there. So that dollar a mile translates into 20 cents in your pocket,
Yeah.
and that can be meaningful to anybody. I don't, even me, even you probably, if you could get $1,200 a month, you would probably
Yeah.
say, I'll put my car out there. All right. So
And oh,
that,
by the way, what we should say about that is I think the reason that the Model Y is still in the mix, frankly,
Mhm.
is, I mean, I personally think Cybercab will never have driver controls.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that debate lives out there. Uh, People say, well, they could create a variant that has driver controls. I just think that that'll never happen.
Right.
I think that the variant that has driver controls is called the Model Y. If Model Y standard, if you want. Um, so I think that for people who want to pick up uh, a regular vehicle and
Mhm.
add it to the fleet, the Model Y is their choice. The
Mhm.
people who want to pick up a much more just autonomous fleet vehicle, the Cybercab is their choice.
Right.
For certain people can live with that Cybercab, because if the autonomy is achieved, it will be, obviously, uh, then who wants to drive?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and by the way, what's really fascinating is I put this post out yesterday. Uh, just small thing is I took a meeting 30 miles away from my house, and I I mean, this is not news, but it is sort of becoming my standard, and that's what's news about it. I went door to door from my driveway to a parking spot, and what I told my wife later is I basically forgot about the drive. Like, I don't remember the drive because my brain was connected to what I was thinking about for this meeting.
Right.
which, by the way, is a good utilization of my time. The whole
Yes.
point of it. And so I think what's really starting to change here is people that are starting to, I guess what I'm trying to say I'll make it short. People will accept autonomy as the means of moving between A and B for 90% or 99% of all miles.
Yeah.
They will not want to drive their car. It will be super clear that the advantages come back to you. And whether that means that you buy a Tesla because it has achieved that and you want that asset, or you buy a Tesla because you're going to share it or push it into the fleet 100% of the time because everybody else wants autonomy too.
Right. Right. Yeah. All right. So then what I still want to get back to, though, for a minute, is how this works out for you, okay, or me, if we put our car out there. So the dollar a mile, worst case scenario, 50 cents cost, 30% or 30 cents goes to Tesla. I get 20. So my 20 cents times whatever gets times 3,000 miles gets me to the $600 a mile. If it's, I'm sorry, 6,000
$100
miles,
a
6,000
month.
miles gets me to $1,200 a month. But now what happens when it goes, if the surge pricing gets me even to $2 a mile?
Yeah.
The 50 cents stays the same.
Yeah.
The 30% goes to 60 cents.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's $1.10. Now I'm getting 90 cents a mile. So even if it's only 2,000 miles a month at 90 cents, I got $1,800 a month pure
Yeah.
profit.
But ironically, I think that problem fixes itself because I think that one, like what I said before, is I don't think Tesla wants to push in their model. Right? They control the model,
Right.
and obviously they have to make it economically viable to someone to participate on the fleet side.
Right.
But by the way, they're not beholden to that. That's the other part of this.
No, they're
It's like,
not.
in
Yeah.
other words, they can move this lever. They can either capitalize the car
Yeah.
themselves, or they can, so they get to move the lever, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think what happens naturally in the markets is if if John says it's a very profitable thing,
Mhm.
then Fred wants one
Right.
too, and
Right.
therefore
Right.
ultimately the surge pricing starts to dissipate. But the flip side of that, what we said is, as the surge pricing starts to dissipate, there's higher utilization of the fleet because people find the economic viability to be more palatable to move around that way
Right.
versus buying a car.
Right.
So it's like, it's a funny piece of interconnected math.
And I've thought about this too, is that you can get to the place where you say, I don't care if my car ever comes home. And in fact, if I need to go to the doctor, I'll call a Robotaxi to come get me,
I
even though it's
know.
going to cost me $2 a mile. It's better than bringing the car back. So,
And how ironic it would be is that Robotaxi shows up as it's your Robotaxi.
okay. So last thing, there's
Do you
a
get a
hurt,
discount if do you get a discount if your own Robotaxi shows
maybe.
up?
So there's a huge overlooked factor, and that's the acquisition cost. And it turns out, according to Grok, that this will be $20 to $100 per user initially. Uber is at about $50 to $80 right now. So you can figure, and I think Waymo is 50 to 70. So that's where that's where they come up with their costing.
But what
So
is that? What is that?
the customer utilization, I mean, customer acquisition cost.
Yeah, I mean, what is it at the
So
end of the day?
that's somebody that puts an app on their phone for the purpose of using it. Now they can put the app on their phone, and that's not an acquisition. Acquisition is somebody puts an app on the phone and then they use it. All right.
And
So
why did they announce these costs as being like what where's the friction in downloading the Robotaxi app?
everything is friction. So
Well,
if I've got
okay.
so if I've got an Uber or
Yeah.
a Waymo app or
Yeah.
both, I don't need another app. Who wants to have more
No,
useless?
no, no, I'm just pushing back on it
Yeah.
because I mean, sorry, why don't you put out the numbers that you said again, the numbers
So $20 to $100 per user to get
on for Robotaxi.
for Robotaxi to get the customer to say yes and start using the service.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's my pushback on that, and it's a logical thing. I mean, economics rules and word of mouth, travels quickly, and this service, uh, is sort of in some version commoditized. So if you feel that to take Cybercab between A and B, you've heard from your friend it's half the cost. I think your acquisition cost is very minimal because what is that acquisition cost if you're just like I agree that who says they want another app, but the reason I have the Lyft app on my phone. So if you think about this, Uber to me is the branded service that I would use from rideshare.
Right.
Why? I don't know. They've done a good job.
Right.
It's the Frisbee. People
Right.
think of it. It's Uber. Everybody says I'm going to call an Uber.
Yep.
Um, but why do I have the Lyft? Well, the first reason I had put Lyft on my phone and signed up and gone through, is because it was really about availability.
Right.
And sometimes in the particular zone I was when I was doing work for Rivian, when I was in suburban Detroit, there was a lot more Lyft drivers. And so, but then it was just purely a cost thing. I would just check each, and the 90% of the time, Lyft beat Uber. So to me, there's no friction in putting that app on my phone.
Yeah, so you got to look at all the weird consumers out there. So
Oh, I know.
you're going to have a consumer who has never used an Uber or a Lyft, but all of a sudden the cost works out and it just makes sense. You're going to have the person who is afraid to ride in the car that's autonomous, and so they need an inducement just to get into an autonomous car.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to have the people that are just too lazy to switch.
Well, and to coming back onto your point and to giving you some, giving you something here on that. But this is an advantage again, is suddenly now if you have high availability of this service, suddenly it spreads across a lot more consumers that like my dad does not have the Uber app on his phone and he doesn't go anywhere that he would use the Uber app. Um, but if he were to travel to, he uses his own personal car. But if he found that this service had high availability, I mean, he knows I use Uber from time to time, but I don't think he's ever been in or used an Uber himself, because he doesn't travel a lot anymore. But if he started using Cybercab, yeah, there's a acquisition cost to that because it's a new thing for him, right? But the converse of that, or the counter argument is, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? That means that Tesla is through Robotaxi is going much deeper into transportation as a service and approaching a lot more people.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my hope would be, I'm just hoping that they do spend, tons of money in each new neighborhood that they go into based on the availability of the cars. So, like any other advertising campaign, if you are getting to a place where you're not giving good service, then you back off. But if you're getting to a place where the cars are sitting idle, then you increase it. So this should be another one of these algorithmic things that Tesla will be very, very good at to optimize the use of advertising to generate the optimal number of miles. So
Well, here's a little switch up on that that I would offer. So unlike an Uber, I mean, it's sort of what I'll call the old cab model. You know, cabs would line up at different places,
right.
right? So you'd find them at airports, you'd find them at, there's like in Italy, they have taxi stands all over Rome where they sort of line up so you don't really have to call them on the street.
Hotels, convention centers.
Hotels, convention centers, and sort of any surge spot where there's going to be, great exits of consumers, sporting events, et cetera, right? But what I guess I'm trying to say is, if there's a high enough availability of cybercabs in certain areas, the things are going to advertise themselves pretty readily because you're going to see these. There's a consistency to this. So the thing about Ubers is, Ubers are just people's cars, right? And they may have a little Uber sign, and there's really no brand
Right.
kind of, there's nothing happening there. A yellow taxi cab, on the
Yes.
other hand, is a pretty blunt object that you'd say, oh, look at the lineup of taxi cabs.
Mhm.
Well, look at these cyber cabs.
Mhm.
I don't think there's any mistake in making them all these beautiful gold and consistently gold objects. And people say, well, they should offer them in different colors. No way. No way. One color because, well, there's a manufacturing effect
Right.
there about how they so-called paint. They don't paint anymore, right, with these cars.
Right.
But besides that, it's a brand statement.
Yes.
And so that drives acquisition costs further down because now you see these things all over the place and
Mhm.
you're like, that's the way you move.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
what's
Well,
the acquisition cost of, well, how about a stupid question? What's the acquisition cost of an elevator or an escalator? Right? I mean, I'm just pushing it further
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
because it's sort of if it is how you move
Mhm.
and it is the de facto way people see these and there's enough flood in a city, then you're just part of that fabric.
So the opposite side of that would be, yes, you're right over time,
Yeah,
but
over time.
when they're first coming into the city and they're an unknown to that city. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
some advantages to Tesla in
Yeah.
being second
Yeah.
because everybody in West LA knows about Uber.
Yep.
Everybody in your town probably
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yes.
knows, everybody knows about Waymo, So, but they're not known in Memphis. They're
Right.
not known in Detroit. So
Yeah.
if Tesla's the first one to get there with Robotaxi, then I think that
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. It does take some time. I mean, as you're right, there is a beauty here of Waymo plowing the field.
right.
Um, because Waymos, yes, are all in my area, and they all look like funny little science projects running around. And I can't even imagine that there's almost any friction to taking if you're willing to take a Waymo, which is a
Yeah.
driverless car.
Yes.
I can't imagine there's any friction that you would take a cybercab.
Right. Right.
Like, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine like what would that be.
Right.
I mean, what would you be? The one guy out there who thinks that lidar is better, and that's why? No, the average consumer doesn't know about that. Unless there's particular safety incidents with cybercab that get in the press,
Right.
and that's not going to happen.
Right.
I mean, it'll happen,
Yeah, right.
but I mean, there's nothing uh, based on the technology we've discussed
Right.
ad nauseum on this channel, certainly, and through all the articles I've written. Tesla will win the autonomy game clearly, in terms of safety.
Right.
So I don't think that'll be real.
All right. Well, so let us know in the comments below. I believe that this is unique information that nobody else has been talking about. Yes, Kathy Wood had the 25-cent price. Yes, Elon's talked about the 20-cent price, but it's been dismissed by so many people. I just felt like we needed to make sure that you do your own math. Let me know in the comments below where this math is wrong. But before you say it's wrong, ask Grok.
Mhm.
And at least I did when I got done with this
Ask
entire
Grok 4.2, by the way.
4.2. When I
Yeah.
got done with the entire thing, I sent it back to Grok and I said, look at this again and tell me where I'm wrong. And they said, well, you might be a little too conservative on this and that. So
Okay.
love to hear your comments. And as always, Phil, great to have you on. Earlier
Well,
this, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
I didn't want you to close this out. I have a bonus question, but go ahead.
No, no, do the bonus question first.
Okay. The bonus question is, Randy, how many cybercabs will Tesla produce in 2026?
Oh yeah. So there's been a lot of talk. A bunch of people have done the numbers. I did the numbers a few weeks ago, and I asked Grok again. I said, look at the Model Y ramp, look at the Model 3 ramp, look at the
Yep.
Cybertruck ramp, and give me your number. And I think the number for this year was, I think it was 135,000.
Yeah, I say that's high.
Yeah, that's Grok's number. In other words,
Yeah, I'd say that.
I think in by the fourth quarter, it starts to become like 20,000 a month and then 30, or 10 and 20 and 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's almost all, in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I will stay under 50,000.
Under 50. Okay. All right.
But I'd say under 50,000 would still be a major gift
Yeah.
because no, I mean the reason is
Oh, yeah.
because I don't care if the ramp is slow because in other words, what I'm saying is anybody that has been dialed into this knows that vehicle ramp is one of the hardest things to do in manufacturing, and I've witnessed that at Rivian. It's really, really, really hard, and I think this one has a special add to this, which is that they've got a brand new manufacturing service. So this isn't like replicating. It's not like a new model
Right.
being built on the way they build the 3 or the Y, which is a process that they've honed. This
Mhm.
is a robot building the robot,
Right.
and there's no human in the loop. And this unboxed model is people have we talked about this a lot. It's very different. So I think what that means is that it's a slower ramp with an incredible big explosion on the back end, because if you were to say, then what's 27, if they break that log jam and they get to close to full utilization, remember what Elon's guesstimate number was, between 6 and 10 seconds per car.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and by the way, that, that's, I mean, we're talking about all lines
Mhm.
additive here, but the point of that is, because I don't know, what do they do on Model Y, 30 something
35,
seconds, 35,
35,
35,
something like
35
that.
seconds. Yeah.
Maybe in China it's a little better.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like, 5 times faster. It's
Right.
not, it's not an order of magnitude, but
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
but then I think the thing about this structure that's different is it's more replicatable. In other words, instead of trying to prop up a line where you've got to hire, your end of line staff, you're just talking about replicating the robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. 100%.
you know,
All right. Yes,
okay.
we would love to know what you guys think in terms of what they'll do this year. All right. So last thought for the day is, which you've heard me talk about this before, but I need more launch team members. The book is going to be shipped on next Saturday, a week from today. So I need the launch. Now it's more important than ever to join the launch team. It's only going to cost you $2.99, and you will get an advanced copy, both an audio version and a text version of the book, like within 24 hours of signing up. That's all you're doing, and making a promise that you'll spend $2.99 on the book. So if you want to sign up, go below in the description. But maybe you can remember it. It's so easy. Randy Kirk 77 at Gmail. There you go.
But
All
Randy,
right.
do tell everybody what the book is. You didn't really say that,
Oh
did you?
yeah, it's a new Elon Musk biography, and it is designed to be Ludlum-esque. If you guys know who Robert Ludlum is, with all of his international spy novels, the famous Jason Bourne. You've watched the movies, you've probably read the books. Anyway, this is written in that method, and everybody that's read it already that has reported back to me says it is a page turner. So there you go. That's what it's going to be. And it is definitely written in what's called creative nonfiction, where you add in some conversations that didn't really take place and you give it a little more intense. Anyway, you get the point. So
Yeah,
sign up for
cool.
the launch team, and we'll appreciate that you do that. And we appreciate, Phil, that you come on and help
Hey,
us
thanks.
out with
No,
all
thank you.
this technical stuff. All right. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.